it's Jeff. Welcome back. Let's start. Alright, in game one. And I guess the key features are we both have passed pawns. I have an h6 pawn. They have a2 pawn. I could see a situation where we take the a2 pawn and then maybe do something like, maybe not now. Like I'm thinking maybe king g6 is the quickest way to start getting that pawn promoted. And we do have the option of rook b3 check, which probably only helps black improve their king position because they go king c7. And then you'd have to go back rook a3. And so you're really just bringing black's king into the center if you go rook b3 check right now. And h7 looks like it just hangs a pawn. Okay, the rook will take, and then you can take on a2. So after h7, rook takes h7, rook takes a2. But is this probably a draw maybe? We both have a rook, both have a passed pawn. So king g6 seems to be the only logical move that I can see so far. And if anything, we could also play g5 after that to protect those pawns. The only thing is, can we stop the d pawn in time? So I think king g5 is going to be the first move, so let's play that. Right now, so yeah, it is about keeping an eye on both of their passed pawns. Now with h7, we're still not promoting yet. So the difference of going h7 now and then king g7, or king g7 now and then h7, one of them is wrong or they're both wrong. Okay, so if king g7, rook, no, I was about to say rook g2, but then we could just promote. Wait, no, we can't. King g7, rook g2. That might be bad because if we push the g pawn, they could still take it. So if king g7, rook g2, h7, rook takes g4, king f7, rook h2, and then if we ever go king g7, they can give that rook check. So maybe h7 first. Then if rook g2, we could just promote. Maybe that's the difference. And if h7, rook h4, for instance, we could also just push the g pawn. Kind of liking that idea. Going g5 now might be too slow. And yeah, I see enough wrong with king g7 immediately. It seems like going h7 first. Even though it at first thought it looked like they're pretty much equal. I think h7 is the way to go. Okay, so they're pushing this d pawn, making life harder for us. So if king g7, let's say d2. Now I wonder if I'm not sure. Oh, we can take on a2, and then after rook takes, we make a queen. And then they go d2. I don't know if that works. Let's see, king g7, d2. Yeah, if we promote, they take and then make a queen. If we take their d-pawn, then they promote. And we also can't even promote to h8 because the queen on a1 is guarding h8, in addition to the rook. So I think it might just be rook takes a2, and after rook takes a2, make a queen, they can go d2, but we have a lot of checks, and we still have the extra g-pawn, so it's probably possible to... And actually, after rook takes a2, h8 queen, d2, queen d8, and now they can't promote. If they ever move the rook off the second rank, we can take the pawn, and if they just try to promote, we could just take the pawn. So that gives us enough time to move our king and promote the g-pawn, I think. And it's key that we get to d8 while the king is still on b7, so the king can't really interfere with anything yet. So I think, so that leads me to believe rook a2. Now promote. Okay, so yeah, that was tough. Spent a bit of time on that. Now let's see the analysis board. And I'll just show that with this, I was thinking something like this, and now they can't promote, and they can't move this rook off this rank. They could give some checks maybe, but then you can move out the way. Okay, so let's see what the wrong moves were. Oh, so it varies through the first move, second move, or third move. So it's kind of weird. So 3 king g7 was most common. So this was the most common mistake. And yeah, so after d2, it's kind of difficult because if you make this queen, they're getting a queen and winning. And if you take here, this is a draw, but they could also take here and make a queen. So it's really, to play king g7 in this position, the problem is you gotta calculate that their d2 pawn is a serious threat, and in a lot of cases you'll just have a lone rook versus their queen. But I'm pretty sure I did consider it at some point, going king g7. So you can see my thought process of how I actually decided that it wasn't going to be fast enough, and then rook takes a2 is fast enough because you get rid of the pawn that's closest to promoting while also distracting the rook, and then you make a queen. And move 2, I think king g7 is also the most common mistake. So right here, and they go d3. Let's say you try to push the pawn. You get a similar situation. So king g7 was tempting on move 2 and 3, but I think they fail for very similar reasons. And then rook takes a2 on move 1 was the third most common mistake. So yeah, just going here now. So all these are like good ideas in a position like you're trying to distract the rook and promote. The problem is they actually can defend everything in time. So just saying d4. So if you're trying to promote, now you can't stop this pawn and you're not in time with your pawn. Not there, but some other move. Okay, so that was that. Another in-game one that I kind of dislike because, well, it's a good puzzle. I dislike it because it's actually good training. Just not disliking it because it's a bad problem or anything. So I had to calculate pretty hard and really be careful to find the one like winning line. So let's go to the next one. And also in that problem, the ideas were kind of straightforward in terms of what features you would like. You could understand what the point of the tactic was. Like you both have passed pawns. You're trying to promote yours faster than they could promote theirs. Okay, another one sort of like an endgame. At least there's no queens. And there's a free rook. So what did they take? So I can actually go back a move. So they took a knight. And it looks like we could take a free rook. But then, so we would have 2 rooks and some pawns. And it looks like we would just be up material there. Like, what's actually wrong with just taking the rook and being up material? Because we have 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They have 10. They would have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That seems like enough material. Oh, okay. So after f takes e5. So remember, look at the opponent's resources. They have bishop e3 forking our rooks. So that's how they're going to get the material back. Now the question is, what do we actually do about this? Because I don't see immediately what to do. Is it something like rook takes b6 at some point? Like, what other threats can the rooks make? Or maybe we just calculate further. So f takes e5, bishop e3. This one seems harder than I thought it was. I really want to just take the rook. So my mind keeps defaulting to looking at f takes e5. But I don't see what to do after bishop e3. Maybe then we just have a passed e-pawn and somehow that plays a factor. And if we don't take the rook right now, then they can move their rook out the way. Can't do anything like rook c8. They could take. Rook c7, bishop takes. And there's really no other threatening moves that the rooks can make. So I feel like it's either rook takes b6 or f takes e5. So let's see, f takes e5, bishop e3. e6, bishop takes c1. Doesn't look good. Wow, so it's probably going to be something very simple that I'm overlooking. This might be the first one we get wrong. Now, okay, what if rook takes b6, a takes... Oh, if rook takes b6, a takes b6. F takes e5. I feel like we're up more material than we are if we take the rook first and allow bishop e3. Because we can't even make a rook move that defends the other rook. Because rook c6, either way, with either rook, would follow the b takes c6. And then how many pawns we have? 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're up a pawn. And their pawns are kind of weak. Isolated d pawn, isolated double b pawns, and isolated h pawn. Where we would just have one isolated e pawn. Okay, so yeah, f takes e5, I think just loses to bishop e3. And if we don't do anything, like let's say we move the rook to h4 or something, then they're up material. So rook takes b6, and then f takes e5 is probably what we have to do, which feels more like a defensive tactic, but I'm pretty sure I thought this should just be winning ones. Moment of truth. Okay, it's wrong. Oh, it was f takes e5. And then, let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was trying to look for something that was like a back rank type thing, but I knew that you couldn't go to g6 or anything, or there was no way to truly back rank mate. But this is a nice move because you create this back rank situation. So let me go to the analysis board. So after rook takes f6, you can give this check. Wait. Yeah, and now you have a rook versus a bishop. And if they take on c1, you still get this rook versus bishop ending. Maybe you go here and defend the pawn. You could even go here next and start trying to push that pawn. So yeah, I didn't see the follow-up after bishop e3. Yeah, rook f6 is a really good move. And also, it makes me feel a little bit better because this really wouldn't have been the solution, because we just end up in a somewhat drawn position. Maybe one side has a slight advantage, but this definitely doesn't look like the typical end to a tactics puzzle that you would see. So yeah, I definitely saw this idea, but then because I couldn't go to any of these rooks to c6, and I guess my tactical vision wasn't that good today, this was the move. And it's not a check or a capture, so it was like a threat, so that is the most difficult of the forcing moves to see. But yeah, that just completely wins. And it's really key because after this move, you go here, and then this pawn just takes back with check. So it's like a weird way of exchanging material. Because if you just take immediately, then they just win. You can give this check, and then take. So you save the rook. Well, that's not weird. That's typical in a lot of puzzles. But yeah, but setting that up in your mind is the difficult part. Because a lot of people could probably get to this point in their calculation. And if you really, by elimination, I should have been able to just eliminate this variation. And then you might play the right move because, okay, you don't see anything else, so you're just going to take the rook, and then they go here, and now you got to think. And at least then you know there's something in the position. So if you just guessed f takes e5, you'll be more likely to find rook f6 next because you'll be in the solution, like partway through the solution, and then you'll just be prompted to think more until you find it. So if I would have played f takes e5, I think I would have been able to find rook f6 at some point. But because I wasn't sure if there was a way to meet bishop e3, I went for the next best thing. So let's see. So there was like 40 mistakes on this problem in total. So rook takes b6 on move 1 is, yeah, by far the most common. And we looked at that. That was my mistake. And let's see, 2 rook takes h7. So a lot of people went rook takes h7 here, which just gives up a rook. You're not really doing anything. You're not even going to be promoting this pawn at all. And they just have an extra bishop. And let's see, 3 e takes f6. Okay, and when people went 3 e takes f6 here, they just hung this rook. So yeah, they just did an automatic recapture, I guess, but you gotta go here and then do that. Okay, so that was instructive. Getting more familiar with a hard to see tactical idea for me. Hopefully you guys were able to get it right. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.